will bring the world's space experts to the University of South Australia, and they will teach the world's future space leaders here. In doing this, Adelaide will become, for 5 weeks, one of the centers of the space universe. I'd like now to introduce these future leaders, the class of SHSSP 2016. In the ISU tradition, the participants will enter behind the flag of their countries. To begin the procession, I'd like to welcome the participants from our host country of Australia. Canada. China. Costa Rica. India. Leslie Grady. Thank you, Michael and Leslie, for being the heart and the heartbeat of this program. And a special welcome to Mount Barker Mayor Ann Ferguson and Councilors Ian Grosser and Devs Buckman. Mount Barker will host one of our most exciting ISU events, a launch, on the 26th of this month. We're so grateful for how hard the UniSA folks have worked and how warmly Adelaide, Mawson Lakes, and Mount Barker have welcomed us. Welcome to our other distinguished guests, including Emeritus Professor Ian Lowe of the Griffith University in Brisbane. And I'd also like to acknowledge French astronaut and ISU faculty member Jean-Jacques Favier, who will deliver our first lecture to the participants tomorrow morning. I'd also like to thank our major sponsors and partners, the Sir Ross and Sir Keith Smith Fund for its generous scholarship support of the program, the Secure World Foundation and its executive director, Dr. Michael Simpson, for its long-standing support for this program, and this year for its support of our white paper team project on food and water security. I'd like to thank NASA for its support of our white paper team project, and the Heinlein Trust for its scholarship and loan support for deserving students, the European Space Agency for its continuing scholarship support of participants from Europe, and Engineers Australia for its Australian scholarship support. I'd like to thank the Mount Barker District Council in the Adelaide Hills for its support of our stratospheric satellite project, and the Australasian Society of Aerospace Medicine for its support for our International Astronaut Panel, which will be held on this campus this coming Thursday. Further, I'd like to thank the Adelaide section of AIAA, the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, for its support of our Space and Entrepreneurs Panel public event, and the South Australian Department of Environment, Water, and Natural Resources for generously hosting the program on our field trip on Australia Day. I'd now like to announce the scholarship recipients. Scholarships are a critical part of graduate education, and we're fortunate to have a number of generous benefactors. So as I announce your names, if you would just stand up and so we can acknowledge you. This year we have been able to award 6 scholarships to Australian participants thanks to the generosity of the Sir Ross and Sir Keith Smith Fund. The winner of the Smith Fund full scholarship is Israj Inderjeet from RMIT University. The winners of the Smith Fund half scholarship are Andrew Butler, Dominic Hardy, Connor McDonald, Tristan Perkins, and Lisa Stoyanovsky. Engineers Australia has been a generous supporter since the inception of this program and have provided generous scholarships for Australian engineers and engineering students. This year, we're proud to announce that the Engineers Australia full scholarship winner is Jessica Orr from the University of Queensland. Congratulations to our scholarship winners, and thank you to our generous scholarship supporters. Our first speaker this afternoon is Professor Alan Evans, who's Provost and Chief Academic Officer for the University of South Australia. He's currently the Acting Vice Chancellor. After completing his PhD in pharmacology at the University of Adelaide, Professor Evans spent 2 years as a research fellow at the University of Manchester before returning to UniSA to take up an academic post. Originally a pharmacist, much of his research career has been spent in investigating better ways of using medicines and assisting Australian, European, and North American pharmaceutical companies. He held a number of national research grants as chief investigator before moving into full-time university administration, but still maintains an active research interest in areas such as effective drug use. I'm pleased to introduce the Acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Alan Evans.
Thanks, John. What a pleasure it is to be here today. It's wonderful to be able to welcome you to this 5th Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program that's been hosted by the University of South Australia. And I extend a warm welcome to all of you, staff, faculty, support staff, and most of all, the students who will be undertaking what promises to be a wonderful experience that I'm sure you'll develop relationships that will last a lifetime. These sorts of things really do have an impact on people. Have been part of similar sorts of things in my field many, many years ago. You develop relationships that remain with you. Our Vice-Chancellor, Professor David Lloyd, who is away at the moment, sends his regard. He's a keen supporter of anything to do with space. In fact, some would call him a bit of a space nerd, but I wouldn't do that, particularly when I'm being recorded on... But he's also a Star Trek fan, and there's probably no coincidence that he's trying to rebrand University of South Australia the University of Enterprise. But we won't dwell on that point. But once again, the global reach of this event, it's wonderful to have so many people from different countries here, as we saw with the ceremony. But when you add up the staff, the faculty and the students, we're actually represented by 15 countries across 5 continents, which is a significant effort in you all coming here today. I had to do a little bit of research to figure out whether Costa Rica was in South America, in which case we could have said 6 continents, but geographically it's still counted as part of North America. But over the next 5 weeks, participants will gain insights and share experiences through a range of lectures, workshops and presentations, but also I hope that you enjoy your experience here in South Australia, here in Adelaide, because it's a wonderful place for you to be meeting. There's lots of things happening in Adelaide over the next few weeks, and we hope that it's not all about studying and swatting, but also about experiencing our lifestyle. And there's a whole lot of events that are occurring, including on Thursday, for members of the public who harbour a fascination for space, the opportunity to hear from our 2 astronauts to talk about their experiences and so forth is a wonderful opportunity. Most of us could only dream of having an experience that these individuals have had, and hearing from them will be a wonderful experience. Space science, in general, challenges us the way we think. We can't just think the way that we thought about the on-Earth paradigm when we start thinking about space. And I was a young postdoc researcher in Manchester. This was my only experience in space research, so I'm going to tell you about it. I was involved in a think tank that had to contemplate whether space travel, particularly long-term space travel, would lead to changes in the way in which we dose drugs to people who are living in space. And initially we just sort of dismissed the notion that really, do you think the changes are going to be that significant? But after a little bit of research, we figured that there was quite a few things happening to the human body when it goes into space. The gastrointestinal tract functions differently. Fluid distribution in the body redistributes. The blood volume changes. There are enzyme activities that change. Bone density certainly changes quite significantly. And so when you start thinking about these sorts of things, what you understand is that when you start thinking about space science, you very much have to think in an interdisciplinary manner. And I think this whole summer school is going to be run around the interdisciplinary components of science, which really is the best way of doing science in my experience. This program was originally developed with the support of funding from the federal government's Australian Space Research Program. This enabled this collaboration between the International Space University and the University of South Australia to create a successful professional development program that is now self-sustaining. Our relationship with the ISU dates back to the early 90s. In fact, shortly after the university was formed back in 1991, we are, of course, celebrating our 25th year, just in case you didn't know, when Professor Mark Miller from our Institute of Telecommunications Research struck up the Memorandum of Understanding with ISU. Since that time, our relationship has evolved and continued to strengthen through staff and student exchanges, our hosting of the Space Studies program, hosting a module of the ISU's Executive MBA program, and now the Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program, which was first held in 2011. Events such as this require tremendous support and input, and like John, I'd like to thank all of those people and organisations who have contributed to the success of this program. Now, I can't let this opportunity pass without saying a few words about space research here at the University of South Australia. Again, I refer back to our Institute of Telecommunications Research, which has for many years really done some wonderful things in the science of remote sensing. And most recently, in November last year, we formed a new company, a spin-out company from the university, Myriota Proprietary Limited, and I think that means a very small MER satellite, that will use low Earth orbit satellites to provide two-way data connectivity for remote sensors and devices. Industry analysts have estimated that global machine-to-machine communications of this nature will grow to $1.2 trillion in revenue by 2022. And I'm sure the university would like just a small slice of that action. So would the founders of Myriota, I'm sure. But the applications include better monitoring of climates, defence systems, national security, maritime, mining, agriculture and more. And the commercial partner for Myriota is a Canadian company called Exact Earth Limited, who are providing significant funding to commercialise this new technology. We also offer industry-leading academic programs in engineering, information technology and science with specialised graduate certificate in space studies, which is directly linked to the Space Studies program. In 2014, we had a significant visitor to UniSA, Major General Charles Frank Bolden Jr., who was Administrator of NASA, who received a University of South Australia honorary doctorate, acknowledging his inspirational military and space career and his worldwide advocacy for access to education. It was during that visit to South Australia where the Major General gave a presentation for more than 1,000 local school students, sharing his inspiring story to urge young students to reach for the stars and commit themselves to a future of learning. And there's something about space that captures everybody's imagination, and the Major General was certainly a great asset as a honorary doctorate of this university. So on behalf of the University of South Australia, I wish you all the very best for this year's program, both the faculty and the students. I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time, and I'm sure you'll have a great experience here in Adelaide. And as I said earlier, you will form relationships that will last a lifetime, and those things are just as important as the things that you'll learn. So please join me now in welcoming Senator the Honourable Simon Birmingham, Minister for Education and Training, to officially open the 2016 Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan, for that welcome and for having me here in your capacity as the Acting Vice-Chancellor here at the University of South Australia, to you, to our other distinguished guests, particularly Professor Peeters, the President of the International Space University, and to all our other guests from around Australia and around the world who are assembled here today, be you the participants, the academic staff, the support staff, and all those who are assisting to ensure that the 2016 Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program is indeed a successful one. It's amazing to see the diversity of participants that we have before us today, the 32 participants from 8 nations, accompanied by a total of 50 faculty and visiting lecturers and staff coming from a range of other countries. So it really is a truly international gathering that we have here, but perhaps more important than the international nature of this gathering is the sense of genuine enthusiasm from participants and staff about the journey and the program on which you are about to embark. It's a little corny in these sorts of gatherings to reference Star Trek, and Alan has already done so with reference to the Vice-Chancellor at the university. But I thought I would reference it today and reference those wonderful opening words from the Star Trek mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilisations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. I chose to go down this somewhat corny pathway because that line apparently was inspired, in fact, by a White House document written in 1958 by Dwight D. Eisenhower's newly created Presidential Science Advisory Committee. It spoke of the compelling urge of man to explore and to discover, the thrust of curiosity that leads men to go where no one has gone before. And that's very much where you'll, happily both men and women, as participants in this program, be doing over the next 5 weeks. Going potentially where others have not gone before, certainly propelled by that thrust of curiosity. Like you, probably every Australian, everyone who shares this planet we live on, we look to the skies and wonder what it is about space. We ask questions about the relationship between humans and space, our planet and space, and how it is that we interact. And it's certainly a field of inquiry that is well worth continued support and advancement. Because we need to continue to push the boundaries of knowledge to understand how it is that space influences our lives, and then how it is that we can use that understanding to better enrich our lives and the sustainment of our planet. This Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program is an important part of that picture of space education and inquiry. Launched in January 2011 by the University of South Australia in partnership with the International Space University, it's a delight to have the 5th such program held here in Adelaide. As a Senator for South Australia, as well as the Minister for Education, it's a matter of great pride to me that South Australia, and the University of South Australia in particular, has been chosen as the International Space University's partner in this venture. And can I echo the words before, encouraging you to enjoy your time here in Adelaide and South Australia, and to experience not just the wonderful richness of the program you're embarking upon and the sharing of the knowledge that's available, but also, of course, the wonderful surrounds that you will be living in over these next 5 weeks. The University of South Australia is proudly the only university in the world to have such a continuing partnership with the International Space University to conduct such an annual program. And this intensive 5-week live-in professional development experience is truly international, intercultural and interdisciplinary. It focuses on space applications, space policy and space services, offering a well-rounded overview of the principles and concepts involved in space science, space systems engineering and technology, space business and management, and space legal and regulatory issues. You will get the benefit and wisdom from the experience of an international, interactive working environment shared with other professionals, graduate researchers and senior undergraduate students, working with these 50 high-calibre staff, lecturers and workshop presenters. An important topic of your exploration over the next 5 weeks is food and water security. I understand you'll be considering how space technologies and space systems can be better utilised to improve the production, monitoring and availability of global food and water needs. Australia is already a global leader in efficient and productive water production, water use and food production. So I'm looking forward to hearing how knowledge from space may help us as a nation to achieve even better outcomes in those critical fields. The broad area of space science which you will be looking at is critical to the future of the world, but to the future of our country as a modern, innovative nation. While it helps us to look and potentially travel beyond Earth, space science also has transformative on-ground implications. Satellite systems, for example, are the key to global positioning. These infrastructures and technologies, particularly satellite systems and global positioning, have fundamentally changed so many sectors and systems as diverse as mineral exploration and mining, shipping, fisheries, automotive industry, sustainable urban infrastructure, agriculture, transport, high-speed communications, of course academic research and even recreation have all felt the impact of these changes. South Australia has a very proud and great history associated with innovation and space science. Aside from being the birthplace of Australia's first astronaut Andy Thomas, the northwest of South Australia is home to the Woomera rocket range, which itself has a history going back to the 1950s. At one stage during the Cold War, Woomera had the highest quantity and rate of rocket launches in the world after NASA's facilities at Cape Canaveral. In more recent times, the use of the range for rocket research has once again increased. And in 2002, the University of Queensland launched a rocket carrying the high-shot engine, the first successful flight of a hypersonic scramjet engine into space. And today, South Australia is still very much at the forefront in space science, not only in hosting this Space Studies program, but in other fields that depend on precision, space-based position technology, such as driverless cars. Nationally, our government has invested in more earthly research infrastructure, but infrastructure that is vital to our interests in space. AuScope, established in 2007 under the National Collaborative Research Infrastructure Strategy, provides an integrated approach to earth science and geospatial research through investments in technology, data and knowledge infrastructure. Ozscope operates the Global Navigation Satellite System, or GNSS, array, a national satellite tracking infrastructure used to measure the deformation of the continent and define the national coordinate system on which all mapping and geospatial data management in Australia relies. Through its 23 participant organisations, Ozscope GNSS data supports users across science and industry. It has a role in precision farming, geophysical exploration, mapping and automation, and high accuracy engineering. Our government has committed ongoing support to the National Collaborative Research Infrastructure Strategy, ensuring that as part of our national science and innovation agenda, driven by our new Prime Minister, that we have ongoing support over the next decade guaranteed for such critical research infrastructure. Innovation has moved more than a few notches in terms of public recognition of what's important in Australia today. Our new innovation and science agenda seeks to ensure that as a nation we don't just keep up, but aims to ensure we stay ahead of those activities in technology that are transforming just about every part of our daily lives. We know that innovation and science are critical for Australia to deliver new sources of growth, maintain higher wage jobs, and seize the next wave of economic prosperity. Innovation is not just about new technology, it's about creating a culture that backs good ideas and learning from taking risks and making mistakes. And it's that type of culture that we hope we see many more examples of universities seeking to take new knowledge, harness the commercial potential of it, and from that invest back into continued knowledge advancement. Our science and innovation agenda focuses on 4 key pillars: the culture and capital required for innovation, the necessary collaboration, building the talent and skills in our people, and government acting as an exemplar. Together, these pillars provide a framework in which we're investing more than $1.1 billion in innovation-driven programs and activities over the next 4 years. Importantly, though, that funding extends well beyond that. As I alluded to earlier, we'll be investing some $2.3 billion over the next decade in cutting-edge national research infrastructure. This will help drive research excellence and collaboration between 35,000 researchers, government and industry members to deliver practical outcomes that support ongoing research activities and collaboration. We're also investing $520 million in the Australian synchrotron and $294 million in Australia's commitment to the Square Kilometre Array. We'll introduce clear and transparent new measures of non-academic research impact to ensure that universities have opportunity to demonstrate how their research is translating into economic, social and environmental impacts. We're also seeking to better prepare the next generation with more support through Australian schooling to embrace the digital age through coding and computational thinking. We want to ensure that our next generation of students and researchers are creators, problem solvers and critical thinkers, not just superficial users of technology. All of these initiatives are of course driven to try to ensure that we maintain and enhance not just our lifestyle in Australia, but opportunities for people right around the world. In giving you some words of encouragement for the 5 weeks ahead, I can do little better than to quote the words of one of the previous participants in the Space Studies program, who said that it was, and I quote, "one of the finest activities in my 16 years of international training. I was exposed to a very high level of learning and training. It was a lifetime experience." Can I commend each of you for embarking on this 5 weeks of mind-stretching activity and learning, where you'll be questioning the realities of the world around you, exploring new possibilities and advancing science education. Your ideas will no doubt go where others may not have gone before. I trust you will embrace innovation and not only raise new questions, but be bold in identifying potential answers and opportunities for the future too. On that note of scientific optimism, I have great pleasure in declaring the 2016 Southern Hemisphere Space Studies program officially underway and wish you every success.
Thank you, Minister. We very much appreciate your attendance today and your words of encouragement for our program. Live long and prosper. I'm now pleased to introduce Dr. Walter Peeters. Dr. Peeters is the current president of International Space University and professor of space business and management. Previously, he was ISU's dean. Dr. Peeters has previously worked with the European Space Agency, handling project control and coordination on the Hermes project and the Euromir flights with Russia, amongst others. He also served as the head of the coordination office of the European Astronaut Center in Cologne. Please help me welcome ISU President, Dr. Walter Peeters.
Thank you very much, Minister, Professor Evans. It's not much left for me to say now after these very well prepared speeches. The most important message still feeling so welcomed is you would not believe how happy we are to be back in Adelaide. And I have to give maybe a little bit of background on that. If you meet one of the older alumni like John, he will have to think twice if you say the acronym SSP. He will, as a tendency, still say summer session program. Because previously we used the wording summer session program. And that stopped at a certain moment when I was trying to find a host site for the SSP, and I talked to somebody from the Southern Hemisphere. And probably they didn't have such a tolerant minister like you. And that guy says, I cannot go to my minister and say we're going to sponsor in July in the Southern Hemisphere a summer program. And that's the first time I got this sort of feeling and impression that, oh, this southern hemisphere, we have to be a little bit careful about it because we think in northern hemisphere terms. Although, on the other hand, I just also checked a little bit, and you have 90% of the water of the world, and we have 90% of the people to drink that water. So you're not so bad off at the end. But the tension is there, and when I was, as John said, dean, I decided to change the name. That's why we kept the acronym from a branding point of view. That's why we call it now Space Session, Space Studies Program. I'm still with this summer thing. It's so branded in us. We did a few sessions here, and then there was a thought, shall we not try to move in 2014? And yeah, we tried. We didn't succeed to find a country which was so suited like Australia and Adelaide. Why? The minister already mentioned it. If you take our motto, which is a little bit the 3 I's, international and intercultural, it's a perfect country for that. If you look at UN statistics, if you look at World Bank statistics, Australia is one of the top countries in terms of equality, equal rights, intercultural. You see it immediately in the streets. But also this third element is something where I think we can contribute a little bit also to the workforce, interdisciplinarity. I must still say I found it amazing that the young founders of ISU 25, 30 years ago already thought about this interdisciplinarity, which at that moment virtually nobody thought about now. Now, teaching interdisciplinarity is not easy, and it took us years and years of refinement to sit and talk to a class which has lawyers, engineers, mathematicians, medical doctors, artists even, because you have to speak one language which everybody understands. You cannot just express yourself in mathematics. I mean, if you start drawing an integral on the table, half of the class thinks that you're designing a coat hanger. So you have to be very careful on what you put there. But thanks to this way that we talk interdisciplinary to the participants, like these ones, it means that also later in their careers, they will be able to talk to other disciplines. So the lawyer will know when there is an IP problem, oh, I have to also check with the engineer, and he can talk to the engineer. Or when there is a legal problem, or when there's an ethical problem, they learn how to communicate. And I think that's the biggest benefit of this interdisciplinarity. And in fact, you mentioned the automobile sector. Most of the new sectors are becoming more and more interdisciplinary. It's finished with the car mechanic, who's greasy, laying under the car and knows everything. At this moment, you have to know mechanics, you have to know electronics, you have to know informatics. Do not forget that, for instance, referring to, they both know it, I guess, in an average car at this moment, there is more calculation power than in the Apollo lander. So you're talking about a complete shift of knowledge, human factors, which are now playing a role. This will continue. If we will have cars which are much more autonomous than the cars that we're driving now, there will be even more of this system engineering. And by the way, it's probably no surprise, at a certain moment, not so long ago, in Europe, both the technical director of BMW and the technical director of Audi were both space engineers. Maybe a bit surprising, but the automotive sector realized that they needed this sort of system thinking people who can look at the total picture and then construct. And that's what our strength is in the space sector. Now, a lot of our students are going to the space sector, but I must also say that recently we're losing a lot of our students, but why not in other sectors, where they appreciate this sort of complexity and this system thinking. So it's a pleasure for me to hear what you were saying, that you're going into this direction, that you want to have more innovative push here in Australia. In the space sector, we often work with space analogs. We try to simulate things with space analogs, and that made me think of, when you were saying it, that, well, do not forget that before there was Silicon Valley in America, you had Napa Valley. And you have already Barossa Valley. So, so I think it's a very logical step that soon, in a few years, if you continue your fantastic things, you have somewhere a Southern Hemisphere Silicon Valley here in Adelaide. I think you're going on the same track. So that is my main message here is we do not want to come here just for the one shot. Again, we found our home here. We tried at other places. I think in the Southern Hemisphere there is no better place for ISU to be than in Adelaide, and I hope that we can have a sort of sustainable, to stay in our language with, like Simon, that we have a sustainable relationship. This is the best place for us to do a Southern Hemisphere place. Very nice for international, very nice for interculture. So let us not have this as a episode, but let's have this as a continuing story between both of our universities. And thanks for hosting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. During his 28-year career as a Canadian Space Agency astronaut, Dr. Robert Thirsk helped advance knowledge through research and exploration. He flew aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia in 1996 with 6 crewmates, including one of his crewmates sitting next to him, as part of a 17-day research flight. In 2009, he and 5 crewmates spent 6 months aboard the International Space Station conducting research, operating robots, and repairing station systems and experiments. As an astronaut, Bob developed skills in spacecraft operation, spacewalking, robotic operations, and the Russian language. He served as backup astronaut for 2 space missions, worked in mission control as a capsule communicator, and served as an aquanaut during an 11-day undersea mission. Bob holds mechanical engineering degrees from the University of Calgary and from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He also holds a doctorate of medicine from McGill University and a master's of business administration from MIT's Sloan School of Management. That seems like a lot of degrees. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Robert Thirsk.
Thank you very much, John, for your kind words, and thank you to International Space University and University of South Australia for inviting me to be part of the SHSSP this year, my first experience. I have so many things I want to tell the participants. I'm so excited. When I look at the participants, I think of our future leaders. I see engineers, I see scientists, I see educators, I see space artists, I see managers, I see astronauts in this group that we're looking at here right now. But I'll just try to confine my remarks to one or two things. First thought that comes to me is there's a lot of similarity between the SHSSP learning environment and the life and work of an astronaut. And let me take a minute to explain a little bit about what I mean there. One of the most difficult things, the most difficult thing that I did was astronaut training in spaceflight. It's really difficult to acquire the knowledge and the skills required to operate spacecraft systems and payloads, to undergo emergency procedures training, to participate in the simulations, to do survival, wilderness survival training, to learn EVA and robotics skills. It's also stressful to fly in space. So often, because of the constraints of the timeline or orbital dynamics, we have one chance to get something right. If we miss that opportunity, it's just too bad. It's stressful because we're representing our nation on an international stage. We're operating equipment. We're entrusted with equipment that's worth not thousands, not millions, but billions of dollars. And we're operating equipment that's been prepared by grad students and by university professors for the last 5 years or so. And if I mess up, I've just destroyed someone's chance to graduate and write a thesis. Having said that, I also have to say that astronaut training and spaceflight is the most fulfilling and gratifying thing that I've ever done. The work that we do on orbit has national and international significance. I have the opportunity to work with the best people and the best organizations in the world. And then the personal bonds that we establish amongst crewmates are strong, lifelong, and heartwarming. So, I think that the SHSSP experience is similar to spaceflight because you, like an astronaut, is always striving to stay out of our comfort zone. In fact, I thrive when I'm working outside my comfort zone because usually the work that I do provides the most significant accomplishments, the most significant achievements. It allows me to personally grow, and it really seals those bonds between your cadre of people who are all pursuing mission objectives. Working in space is like the 3 I's environment here in the ISU learning environment. So the international, intercultural, and interdisciplinary work environment in space characterizes almost all modern space agencies and space programs today. Let me conclude by telling an anecdote that occurred during my STS-78 space shuttle mission, and Jean-Jacques will remember this. About 2 hours after our crew reached orbit, our crew commander, Tom Hendricks, called us all together, and he said to us, "I only have 2 things to tell you before we open up the lab and start our 17-day research program. First thing is that our vehicle has arrived on orbit intact. It's a perfectly functioning space shuttle. You're a well-trained crew, and we have a superb, talented support team on the ground ready to jump in and help us whenever we need it. Therefore, if any time over the next 17 days you find that you are not having fun, stop and reevaluate because you're doing something wrong." The second thing Tom said he wanted to tell us was that if anyone leaves the toilet dirty, he will kill them. So Tom's remarks were funny. They made an impact on the crew. And he was making the point that the culture for our crew was going to be, yes, we're expected to perform at a high level, but we're also expected to have fun. And we're also a crew that looks out for each other. So, ISU participants, like astronauts, stay out of our comfort zone. We appreciate the international, intercultural, and interdisciplinary environment in which we work, and we pursue excellence. So I'll conclude here and just say again, thank you for the invitation to join you at SHSSP this year. Have fun and look out for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. One of the extraordinary things about ISU, and there are many of them, is that it originally began as a vision by 3 graduate students at MIT in 1987, Peter Diamandis, Bob Richards, and Todd Hawley. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Peter or Bob to fly down here. They're both hyper busy people, but luckily, one of them was able to record a video message for us just earlier today. So I'd like to now introduce a greeting from one of the founders of ISU, Dr. Bob Richards. Bob is a space entrepreneur and futurist. He's co-founder of ISU, co-founder of Singularity University, co-founder of the Students for the Exploration and Development of Space, co-founder of the Space Generation Forum, and CEO of the company called Moon Express. Bob chairs the Space Commerce Committee of the Commercial Spaceflight Federation. He's a member of the International Institute of Space Law. He is the chief evangelist of the New Space movement, and he's been a catalyst for a number of commercial space ventures. He's received numerous awards, authored many space publications, and most importantly, he's our founder, our friend, and our inspiration. So if I can get this right, I present Bob Richards.
So hi everyone, this is Bob Richards. I'm speaking to you from Cape Canaveral in Florida, and I'm very happy to welcome you all to the University of South Australia Mawson Lakes campus and to the 2016 inaugural kickoff of our Southern Hemisphere program. So I have a bit of a cheat sheet here, so I hope you don't mind if I glance down every once in a while. But John Connolly asked me to come in and welcome you all to the ISU family. You're kicking off what I know will be just a fantastic new program, and will be definitely a turning point in your life, and I can guarantee you that. But there are some things to do here. These things don't happen just accidentally. There's a ton of work that goes into creating even a 5-week program, and we have to give special thanks to Australian Minister of Education, Simon Birmingham, who I understand has been very much behind our program, and this couldn't happen without him. Of course, a special thanks to UNISA, and the Vice Chancellor President David Lloyd and Acting Chancellor Alan Evans for hosting ISU for the 5th time, which is great. Of course, the City of Adelaide and all the communities and people and the tribes around Southern Australia. I've been to Adelaide. I was there for our SSP program some years ago, and I know how fantastic and welcoming a place it can be. So last and not least, Michael Davis, who has year after year gone over and above to make sure that these programs happen, and John Connolly, who has been with us for so long and just keeps bringing on the awesome and turning it up. So thank you, Michael and John, for helping kick this thing off. But most importantly, it's about you guys. It's about the participants of this program who are coming together for an adventure that I can predict you won't imagine the benefits that are going to come to you as you push the boundaries of what you can be used to, what you can do, and meet amazing people from all over the planet who will help you reach for your dreams as they share with you theirs. We're all members of the ISU family. We're 4,000 strong, decades in the making, and together we're making a difference. We're living at the cusp of a new era of space exploration where we truly are becoming a multiplanetary species, taking those first steps toward the moon, Mars, and the stars. And ISU is a big part of making it happen. Our alumni, our heads of industry and heads of government and heads of academia. And we're all making this future happen that we have dreamed about for so long, and you are all becoming part of that. If there's one message from ISU, it's that nothing is impossible, that all your dreams can come true with courage and conviction to push your personal boundaries, to reach out and talk to somebody you may have not talked to before, to think about things in ways that you may not have thought about them before, to break the boundaries of your disciplines and reach into areas that are maybe outside your comfort zone, and it'll come back to you. It'll come back to you in many ways that you just can't imagine. The friendships that are forged here at ISU, the friendships that I've been so benefited with all my life, including my co-founder, Peter Diamandis, and the sadly departed Todd Hawley, who was with us not long enough. We are just creating this future together, and with your help, together, we'll all reach for the stars with wisdom, vision, and effort. I congratulate all of you in coming together for this program. I thank our new ISU Chancellor, Buzz Aldrin, whose shoes I am trying to fill, but I hope you'll hear from him later in the program. And I am so thrilled to have you join the ISU family. I wish you a great program. Hold on, it's going to be a wild ride. This is Bob Richards signing off from Cape Canaveral. So long.
Thank you, Bob. All right. Well, our thanks to the minister for your welcoming words and for opening our Space Studies program. And my thanks to all our speakers today. ISU President Walter Peeters, UniSA Vice Chancellor Alan Evans, Canadian astronaut Dr. Bob Thirsk, and of course, our founder, Bob Richards. I'd like to thank all of you for attending our opening ceremony today. And on behalf of our hosts at the University of South Australia, I'd like to invite you to join us for a reception in the Kerry Packer Civic Gallery, which is just up the stairs. So all the speeches are done. Now's the time to press the launch button. So thank you all for attending today, and International Space University Southern Hemisphere Program 2016 is officially launched. Thank you.